Hi everyone, Module 3, Business Rules and Business Logic. Okay, so I'll directly go to the questions, what type of questions can be asked business logic related, and then we'll come back if we need to understand. Uh, so what is a business rule? The first question. So business rule is a condition or policy or validation defined by an organization control how business process and software application should behave. So every software application has business rule, right? So as a business analyst, your main requirement gathering process is you need to understand, you need to um, gather this requirement and has to confirm how the application should behave. For example, uh, our use case we are discussing about the checks, the post-dated checks are not accepted before the validate, right? This is one condition. So if we don't configure this rule in our application, all the checks will be passed, right? The fraudsters start depositing checks, right? So very important. It doesn't matter you work on healthcare project or like banking project or HR project. So main question you should ask, what are the business rules you need to implement? Okay, so let's move on. What is a business logic? So here you see there's a different business rule and business logic. So business logic is the system process that evaluates business rule and make decision automatically. So same example. If check date is greater than current date, then reject check deposit request. This is the business rule. So we need to check the post-dated checks are not accepted. This is the rule. So how a developer need to implement inside the code, that's the business logic. So business logic, the configuration, if check date is greater than the current date, right? That's the business logic. Then reject the check deposit request. Okay, moving on. What are business rules important in software applications? So again, so you might have a question. What should I capture? Is it the business rule or the business logic? So when you are capturing the business rule, yes, you have to provide this answer to the developer also. The next question, like what is the configuration, right? So you need to provide this number. Also, you need to provide the expected result. Why are business rules important in software applications? Let's take a look. Business rules help application make accurate decisions, reduce fraud, improve compliance, standardize workflows, and automate manual operations. So what business rules application cannot process transaction correctly? Without this one, we cannot process. So what we are automating, remember, we are automating a manual workflow. So if customer go to the bank teller will physically analyze or examine the check, right? And see if the date is valid, if the amount written in the word and number is it correct, right? Everything the teller will manually verify. So what teller is doing, he's checking he's evaluating the business rule manually, right? Whatever the bank written define uh, risk uh, risk rules or business rules, the teller is evaluating manually. So when we automate this one, we need to configure, which is the business logic, those conditions and provide the configuration also, right? So without business rule, what will happen? The bad decision being made, right? The fraudster, there are always fraudsters try to come to the business workflows using the invalid data and fraudulent data also, right? So business rules are important to prevent fraud, improve compliance, and make sure the standardized workflows. We cannot allow a kid taking a loan, right, without income, right? So that's why someone business rule uh, uh, to apply a loan, the age should be greater than 21, right? Something like that, right? So business rules are very important to improve the compliance and standardize the workflows, right? So move on to the next question. How does a business analyst get a business rule? So let's take a look. A business analyst gather business rules by discussing workflows with stakeholders, business teams, operation teams, and subject matter experts. The BA asks questions about validation, expectations, approvals, and system behavior. So your question always you should be asking who does what, right? Like what will happen? You have to think possible use cases, possible scenarios, right? You have to think like a customer, right? You always have to think the good scenarios, happy path customers, and also you have to think about the exception scenarios, unhappy scenarios also, right? So that's the BA skills. So in order to think like a customer, think like a user, you have to know the workflow, right? So that's why domain knowledge is very important in this case, right? But if you are new BA, then you are thinking, can't a new BA or new student cannot be a BA? You can be a BA. Yes, you can work with your internal teams like the developers and stakeholders like expert SMEs and read log into a testing flow and test and see how the application behave. The more you know, the more clarity you can bring to the requirement. Okay. So the next question related business rules. Can you give an example of converting a manual business rule into a digital workflow? Okay, so you can use our example, a use case we are talking about in a bank branch. A teller manually checks whether a check is stale date. Stale mean usually Canadian checks are 6 month valid. So stale date is after 180 days. So for example, if it is May 19 today, uh, checks are accepted um, reduced from minus from May 19th up to 180 days, right? Past 6 months, we can accept, right? Example. So we are May, so we can accept check in December, from December 19th, somewhere, right? So those are the manual flow. This customer uploads a check. This the digital flow we are explaining. System reads check date, backend validates the date. System rejects tail checks automatically. The manual validation becomes automatic. So this is a use case you should be able to explain it to the interviewer, right? Can you explain a business logic or business rule you worked on? So this is a good example you can talk about. All right. Okay. So this module 3, we discuss about what business rules are, what business logic mean, how system process validation, how manual workflow become digital, how business and gather rules, and how application make decision. Okay. So let's move on to next ones. Next one, module number 4, converting manual process into digital workflows. Okay. Let's skip the lesson and let's go and answer some questions. So these are some questions we can ask. What validation are required? What information the user should enter? What happens if validation fails? What exception exist? What should the customer see? Should be stored? Approvals are required? What systems are involved? Okay. So here the question number 1. What is the manual process? A manual process is a workflow where human beings perform tasks. Validation and decision making manually without automation. For example, a bank teller manually validating a check detail before processing a deposit. We talk about this, right? What is a digital workflow? A digital workflow automates business operation using software system. Applications collect information, process business rules, make decisions, and store results automatically. Example, a mobile banking application automatically validating check deposits. Question number 3, what is the role of a business analyst in digital transformation? A business analyst help organization understand current workflow. This is where the business analysts are hired. Like the current process is manual or current process need some enhancement. Right? That's where the business analysts are working. Identify business problem. What's the problem currently user is facing or business is facing? Right? Gather requirement, gather business rules and the business logic, define future state process, document business rules, and support software implementation. Question number 4, what is the difference between current state and the future state process? So these are kind of theory, but if I don't think so anyone will ask. But if you are going to apply for a entry-level job, so there might be a question about this one. So let's see how we can explain this question. So current state describe how the business process works today, while future state describe how the process will work after improvements or digital. So always when you are answering to a question, take a use case or example, right? So current state may involve teller-based check processing. You can explain, for example, when a customer go to a bank to deposit a check, teller validates the check manually and deposit the customer account. So that's the manual process, current state. What's the future state? Future state, you can explain. This is this entire process convert into a mobile check deposit application. So you should be able to explain this one. Okay. So question number 5, can you explain how a manual check deposit process become digital workflow? So we just talked about, right? So you can explain the first step, customer upload the check. We are mimicking the manual flow, right? Customer go to the branch, give the check to the teller. So here customer self-upload flow. System validate business rules automatically, manual flow. Teller validating manually, backend process decision. So this is the business logics are running. And what is the evaluation result here, right? Database store the result. And confirmation is displayed digitally, right? Whether check is approved or hold or rejected. Okay. So this module, we expecting these are the main points you should remember. What manual workflows are always any application, any product, digital product you are building. So remember, what is the manual workflows are, what digital workflows are, right? The current state, future state, how business automate operations, how business analysts support digital transformation, right? And how business rules become automated software behavior. So you should know how to do the analysis to find out the current state and how to do analysis to finalize the future state and workflow transformation and digital process thinking. Okay. Let's move on to the 5th module, front-end requirement gathering. Okay. Let's go to the questions to understand what is this module about. First question, what is a front end in a software application? Front end is the user interface. User means who use the application. Of an application where user interact with the system by entering data, clicking buttons, uploading files, and viewing information. Any user actions, right? For example, our use case, a check deposit screen in a banking application. Question number 2, what is the role of a business analyst in front-end requirements? A business analyst defines what fields, inputs, validations, and messages should be present on the screen to ensure user can correctly interact with the system. So if you are working on front end, you have to make sure what information we collect, right? And what are the business rules, and what are the decision message, right? After running the message, these are the three things happening, right? We collect some data from the user, run it through our business logic, and we give the result to the customer. Any application, this is the fundamental you think, right? Any application, we give some sort of data information, and the application designed with business logic, and it evaluate the business logic, and it will give the output whether it's approved or account is created or you are rejected. You can stream, you can watch the movie, you can listen to the song, or you can download whatever your requirement is, right? Next question is, what is the difference between front-end validation and back-end validation? Let's understand this one, okay? So front-end validation checks user input before submission to improve user experience, while back-end validation check business rules and ensure data accuracy and security after submission. So there are two steps, right? The front end, let's say you are running a shop, okay? So the shop, customers only can buy items age greater than 21, right? So we have to collect the date of birth there, but can we tell the customer to write the date of birth? So what will happen if the customer written the date of birth in words, right? We don't, our application didn't build that way, right? So maybe the application is that there is a date picker. You have to select the date of birth, 2000 November 11, something like that, right? So customer is writing, I was born 2000 November 11, something like that. That's not acceptable. So that validation front end controls. So how we should collect the data, that front end control, right? So no, we have to force the customer to say only digits are accepted. That's the front end validation. What is the back end validation? Back end validation check the date of birth entered and check the current date, the today's date, and convert it into days and minus current date and the customer input, which is provide the date of birth. See if that's match with the 21 days. If date is equal or greater than 21, customer is welcome, approved. Or like allowed, that customer can go ahead and fill up the application. So that's the difference between front end, back end. So you should be able to explain these scenarios if interviewer asks. Okay. So next one, why are error message important in the front end design? Error messages help users understand what went wrong and how to correct their input. Clear message improve user experience and reduce confusion. So after we collect the data, the backend in the backend, the business logic will business rules will be evaluated. If what is the result of this message, we are not exposing the business rule to the customer. We are not telling, right? So how we can react to the customer? We can simply display a message what went wrong, right? Why error message are important? The error message help user understand what went wrong, right? You have seen sometimes 404 error, server error, you have entered invalid data. The example I was talking about, if the customer enter the date of birth in words and submit, the application will tell date of birth error, wrong format. We only accept digits. Select the date from the date picker or something like that, right? So that way user know, yeah, I have to select the date of birth, not write the date of birth there. There is a calendar option. I need to click and select, right? So that's why the error messages are important. what happens after user click a submit on a front-end screen. Let's understand this one. So the front end sends data to the backend system where business rules are processed. The backend returns the response and the front end displays the success or error message based on the result. So pretty much same, right? So any button from the front end, right? Like a submit button, register button, OK button, any button, there is a functionality behind that button, right? So what will happen? This data, entire data is sent to the backend via API. So now it's go through the business rules where the rules are processed, right? Checking the date of birth, checking the name is match, okay, checking the income is match with the expenses, right? So all the business rules are evaluated, and finally backend return the response. Here is my answer. It's like you submit application, loan application to the bank. Bank will tell the decision to you after they process 1 or 2 days, right? Mortgage application, so car application, any application, right? So backend is like the backend staff here in the database. What the system is doing, it's checking one by one because it need to extract the data, whatever is collected from the front end, and put it in the right format and see if the rules are passing or failing based on the score or based on, let's say we have 10 rules. If 8 rules are passed, we are considering 90% or 80% is good. If more than 80%, we are approving whatever result. Okay, that's one example. Okay, all right. So far we learned what front end means in software application, how user interact with systems, how business analysts define UI requirements, how validations are split between front end and back end, and how user experience designed in real projects. Okay. So this, I want to end this video. So we will cover module 6, from module 6 to I guess module 10 or 11, backend requirement in a different video. Okay. Thanks everyone. I'll see you soon.